Welcome to another episode of Waring Stories. My name is Brooke Fox and I'm the University Archivist for the Waring Historical Library. Today I am in the College of Pharmacy's Alumni Museum to speak with Dr. Ronald Nickel, College of Pharmacy faculty and curator of said museum.
Well, thank you, Brooke. And today we're going to be talking about suppositories. And here in the United States, suppositories are not a very popular dosage form, although they're very, very practical. The most familiar ones, of course, are rectal suppositories for things like hemorrhoids and external things. But they're very handy also when other routes of administration can't be used. For instance, if somebody is very nauseous and they're throwing up, you can't give oral medications. So we can use things rectally and they work fine. There's also vaginal and even urethral suppositories. Now, mostly they're made by manufacturers, but once upon a time, the pharmacist was the one who compounded them. And the basic material that they would use is cocoa butter, which is derived from the cocoa bean. And if you handle it, it's sort of, if it's cold, it's sort of fairly solid. But as it gets softer, it almost becomes like Crisco, which is a problem that before we had air conditioning, it was a very difficult material to work with. Suppositories could be made in different ways. One would simply to incorporate a drug, the active ingredient, into cocoa butter, everything measured, and then the pharmacist would hand roll them, form them, and they were very good at that. But in a warm climate, that got to be a very messy procedure. Then other approach would be to use a mold in which you would melt the cocoa butter with the drug in it, and then you would pour it into the mold and let it, you'd find a cool place, and you would end up with fairly uniform and it's a much easier way of going that way. The problem with that is that not all drugs could take the heat that was required to do the melting. And so another form that was both less messy and a lot more efficient, because you could make multiple suppositories at the same time, was some sort of a machine. And this particular machine was made by the Whitall Tatum Company. This particular unit is probably 100 years old, and it operates sort of on pressure. In the middle is this cartridge, and we fill the cartridge with a shredded cocoa butter material. At the front of it, this is actually the mold that the suppositories are made from. The material is forced in through the little holes in the back, and then when these things are filled, if everything goes as planned, they pop out. Well, there were various sizes, perhaps for infants and then for adults, and it was very efficient because you could make multiples with one batch of this material. And so this presently has been filled with the cocoa butter. We have some pressure on it, and we're going to see if this works. At times it does, sometimes it just gets very bulky, and we might not be able to see the suppositories step out. There they go. All right. See? And so these were the ones that, that would be a really nice looking suppository. And when you can make 3 at a time and just do the multiple, it's a very efficient form. Like I say, here in the United States, suppositories in general are just not a popular dosage form. In Europe, they're used quite widely, and they do have application. And so this is the machine. The backstory on this, we had the Hurricane Hugo. The museum was flooded, and this particular machine was just a piece of rust when it was all over. We had a student who came in and took one look and said, "I know how to fix this." And she restored it completely, and it's a beautiful job. And 100-year-old piece of equipment, this certainly is still doing a good job. So that's our story on suppositories.
So how soon after making the suppository would it have to be used? Or is this something when
No.
somebody can just
Put them in the fridge. Well, yeah, I mean, normally it was just, made it, patient goes home. For the next week, if they're, they had hemorrhoids or something, they would apply it. And now you get commercial ones. And you see, different molds make different sizes. Poison bottles. They're a special type of bottle. And the reason is they're special is that they always have something tactile, touch, as opposed to, the standard bottle that's sort of glass and straight with a label on it. Because the average pharmacy was not very well illuminated 100 years ago. You probably had a kerosene lamp or something. And you have an awful lot of small containers. You did not want to pick up the wrong bottle in that sort of twilight. And so when you grab something like this, okay, this one is, it's labeled poison. So this was actually one of those things you put in a vaporizer, but it had creosote in it. And so that was categorized as a poison. Now you go, why would you put poison in a vaporizer? I'm not ready to explain that one. But as soon as you picked up the bottle, it had the little knobs on it. See? The same thing with this guy. It is labeled poison. Some product came in it, and as soon as you grabbed it, the little knobs were there.
And it also kind of is the shape of a casket too. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, some of the mercury-containing tablets were actually in the shape of little coffins. They were actually molded that way. Again, as soon as you saw that, the lights went on. Sharp and Dome, Baltimore, and again, you have some. Even that would give you a little bit mercury bichloride or calomel, marked poison. The shape of the bottle, most bottles were not triangular. They were squarish or roundish. We've got some six-sided ones over there. But a triangular bottle sparks something in your mind and says, whoops, what do I have in my hand? And so that's when we talked about a poison bottle. We're not just talking about a bottle with poison in it, but one that was designed to do what I just described. Warn you that you're dealing with something wrong. Now, at Christmas time, if we all remember It's a Wonderful Life, the opening act is in a pharmacy. And the young clerk is trying to warn the pharmacist that he's just made a real drastic mistake. The pharmacist is inebriated. He's mourning the death or the injury of his son in war. And he is very angry and he strikes Jimmy, what's his name? The actor. So that's the part I always remember because it's an old-timey pharmacy, and you zero in on it. But that was one of those situations where he grabbed the wrong thing and dispensed it, and it had a bad outcome. So that's why we have poison bottles. For syphilis, because what they would do is they would massage the genital area with the idea that it would penetrate the skin and get the organism, which was sort of clustering in the genital area, whether it worked or not. We also have the device for administering the first chemotherapeutic agent, which was called the magic bullet back in 1910, Paul Ehrlich. Well, we happen to have a couple of the administration thing and a couple ampules of salvarsan was the name. Well, we have the cousin to it. It's called neosalvarsan. And what they would do, and in fact, we have the sheet that says how to use it. You administered 1 week that, and then the next week you used injectable mercury, and you did it at intervals. Real fun. So the warning is just don't get syphilis. What was it? Dr. Word has it. It's an old saying. A moment with Venus and a lifetime with Mercury. And then you had to pay the dues forever. Yeah, see, in the military, because guys were coming back from Nam with organisms that were just, yo. And so you throw the book away and you go to the max dose.
Yeah.
And one of the things was, it's called bicillin. And it looks like putty. It is so thick, and it's injectable. And you put one shot in each butt. The guy wouldn't sit down for a week, trust me. So he'd remember not to do this again. And then you gave him, I think it was Aldamet, which reduces the urinary excretion. So it kept the blood levels real high. And I mean, you're in there just killing bugs. I mean, that's the whole point. Plus, you kept, every time you sat down, you remembered, maybe that was a bad idea, man.
So keeping the blood levels high helps.
Yeah, your blood level of penicillin is, you just keep it as high as max to wipe out what he picked up on the streets of Vietnam or wherever they were. Yeah, or in Chicago on Rush Street, because on Monday morning the MPs would bring them to the Public Health Service clinic, our clinic. I was a commissioned officer, and so to bring the kid in, some 18-year-old, Oh, he got hurt. Well, yeah, he got hurt. He messed up and he got a little instant justice.
No one to talk with, all by myself. No one to walk with, I'm happy on no show, babe. I ain't misbehaving, I'm saving my love. Oh, baby, love you, really, baby, love you. I know it's saying, one I love, through it flirting. You that I'm thinking of, ain't misbehaving, I'm saving my love. Oh, baby, my love.